Happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of Drank and Champagne. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Andrew Champagne. Andrew, how are you doing, my friend?
It's been a heck of a week, but thankfully some good stuff has happened. Feel pretty good. Certainly, Oaks and Derby were both pretty darn good to both of us. I think that'll show as we wind up recapping the events of the past week. If you are here because you are a new fan after the events of the past week, first of all, welcome. Thank you very much for spending some of your time with us on the On the Rug Lead Network. If you're watching this on YouTube and you like what we do, go on down below, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. If you're listening to us on your podcast platform of choice, just give us that 5-star rating. We'd be very grateful. That helps us do a lot of stuff that hopefully our audience very much enjoys.
I'm glad I hired a hype man.
Hey, I'm just saying, you get me with a boombox behind, and I'll start remixing with a couple of things. Yeah, I'm not sure anyone would actually want to see that, but they have to at least do what we can, especially given the work that goes into this. Not just us, but obviously Caleb and Mark. And you got to be shot-tinning me with Matt Carlson, who had a couple of good opinions at Happy Valley last night, because when doesn't that guy have good opinions at Happy Valley or shot-tin? He's really good. So, by the way, what's the status of the beer bets? How's the balance going there? I have to
Dude,
ask.
I have no idea. I think
Who's
right now,
tracking the beer bets?
I don't know. We got to go back and listen, which is awful. Because I think it's 4-2. I think he's up 4-2 on me, but I got to
Okay.
double check. Um, yeah, it's been a crazy like 2 weeks for me. We talked a little bit about it last week. Having just going to a work conference and having played a gig that week. Like it just, and it just continued on, right? Obviously, because I was lucky enough to be able to go to the Kentucky Derby, and we're going to
Yep.
talk a little bit about that. But you know, the content machine does not stop, Andrew.
No.
The Derby ended. Obviously, we have the Preakness in 2 weeks, and we're going to get some more about that later.
That's called foreshadowing, kids.
But yeah, this week we got we're live streaming Thursday, right? We're back on that. We're going to try and do that every Thursday going forward, with depending on how our schedules align. But for the most part, that's going to be locked in. We're going to be covering Man of War Day with the late pick 5, with the Man of War not being part of it. But, you got a couple of nice races in that late pick 5 we'll talk about there. But Friday, Andrew, Friday night, shots in night this week. So you've got to be shots in. He's going to go live again this
We'll
Friday
do it
night.
live,
So
baby. We'll do it
yep.
live.
So that should be fun. Especially because Andrew, you say I don't puff my chest out enough
You need to
with
do
some
it
of this
more. You
stuff.
need to do it more.
But man, I hit a big one today at Happy Valley.
Hit the applause button on yourself, because I know where this is going and you deserve it, damn it.
It's really funny. I was getting ready to go to a meeting, bright and early, and usually I can catch the last 3 races. So I usually put a late pick 3 ticket in for Happy Valley on Wednesdays, but the race had gone off for the late pick 3, so I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna play this double. There's the 2 horse in the second to last race. Was a bit of a price. I think when I looked at him, he was somewhere between like 18 and 20-1. I forget
believe
what
he went
price.
off at 18-1. Yeah.
Yeah,
Keefe.
yeah, Keefe. And I just thought that he had some back races that looked pretty good with what he was going against, specifically at the track and the distance. And I didn't see a whole lot more. I liked him there. I liked the favorite a little bit, but I think I used them in a Quinella. I used them in a double, and I had a win bet on Keefe. And Andrew, I got what I believe is called the whole enchilada there,
Yes, you did.
in which I hit. Not only did I hit the Quinella and the win bet, but I hit the double and the consolation. So I got all of it. Basically made about $1,000. Basically made what I lost on Derby weekend right back. So that definitely put a little bit of pep in my step for this week.
The
So
words you're looking for are, of course, Happy Valley, Joy, Joy. Okay, you can't boo me when I adequately summed up the celebration and what was
uh,
going on in your head. I understand you don't like that I can read your mind and come up with these incredibly witty things, but come on, man.
so and there's something about Sha Tin that or Hong Kong racing that it's just because of the time it's at. Um, I'd never stay up for all the races. There's been a couple times where I have, right? Like I'm just like feeling like playing League of Legends till 4 o'clock in the morning and whatever. I'll sit there and I'll watch, right? But for
Bet
the
your
most
wife
part,
loves that.
she doesn't care. She's like that. Great. He's gonna sleep in even longer. My wife will sleep until noon if she's got the choice. But we oftentimes I get my bets in and go to bed, and it's kind of like Christmas morning, like waking up to see like how much money is in the account, right? Like did I win anything, like what's going on. So I kind of had a little bit of that feeling today when I opened up my account. I had no idea it was going to be as much as it was. So it was a nice little surprise. I've had a couple of those at Happy Valley. But yeah, it was nice. It was nice to get one home. I wish I would have had time to like actually like put that out there, but it's tough, man. It's tough on Wednesday morning for me. I don't know how Matt does it. Matt is like getting all his picks and stuff out there, and he's doing it. I wish I had the thing that the Wolf of Oaklawn plays, Chase Sessoms. The why do you do it, baby Billy? Well, because I'm selfless,
Okay,
but
so really quickly, we need to make this little tangent. I was searching for the right word. Finally got to see the series finale of the Righteous Gemstones tonight. Alicia and I
mhm.
were waiting until we could watch it together. That show did an outstanding job of making people root for some truly awful human beings. Like that was phenomenal writing from start to finish. If you're not a Righteous Gemstones person, there's 4 seasons. I understand some people aren't exactly fans of Danny McBride's, but he's at his best in an ensemble where you don't necessarily get overwhelmed by him. And Uncle Baby Billy is just a wonderful character. Josh, I can't speak for you, but I don't think you'd object to if he got a spinoff.
I've never seen the show, so I
Josh,
I don't even know. I didn't know what that was from. I thought it was like an SNL skit.
no, that's an
It's a
actual
TV
show.
show,
The
huh?
Righteous Gemstones on HBO. John Goodman is in it as the patriarch. The cast is absolutely fantastic.
I thought John Goodman was dead, so that's
No,
like,
no,
wow,
no, he's in that. He's genuinely funny.
interesting. I'll have to check it out. What is that? HBO?
Yes, HBO has it.
So it's on Max.
Yeah, it's on Max and Hulu. I think has like a back way into it, at least the way
Okay.
my fiance has it set up. But yeah, no, definitely worth your time. And if anybody out there is looking for a show that just finished to binge, that's it. It's definitely raunchy. There are definitely some things that not for the faint of heart, but if you like that kind of comedy, it's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into our kind of our main
Yeah.
topics here. We'll start with the Derby, obviously, fresh in everyone's mind. You know, I guess we'll talk about the weekend as kind of a whole to start. I was I was I was very impressed with the quality of racing I think we got this weekend. I think oftentimes we get these big fields and even sometimes like they kind of disappoint, but man, we had a lot of really really good racing this weekend. I thought we had a lot of great moments. I had egg on my face the entire weekend, which was not fun betting wise, but Andrew, like for as wrong as I was on a lot of stuff, I went into the Derby basically, if journalism wins, I turn a profit on the weekend. So like as bad as everything went, I was still live to a get out with kind of a get out with journalism, and obviously ran a very solid second in that race to sovereignty. But I thought the Oaks with good cheer winning as impressively as she did was I mean it was just impressive. Like I was completely wrong on that horse. And yeah, I mean, just one for fun, basically there. So why don't we start? Why don't we talk with the Oaks? What were your kind of thoughts on the Oaks?
So I like Take Charge Milady quite a bit. You could tell within 3 furlongs that horse wanted no part of the track that day. You could
Yeah.
tell she was feeling the effects of having missed the work due to the abscess. But Good Shear was much the best. Much the best. It was a fun performance. She's now 7 for 7. And Josh, here's the scary part. She may not be the best 3-year-old filly in her barn because Immersive's on her way back. And we remember
Mm.
how good Immersive was last year, going 4 for 4 with 3 grade 1 wins. That's going to be very interesting to see what happens later on this year. The one thing that I did notice both on Friday and Saturday at Churchill, with the way the track was playing, it obviously rained a lot on Friday, Saturday. It was a fair track, I think, but it was very tiring. And what I did notice was several highly regarded horses that were coming in off of long layoffs, the horses that hadn't run since the Breeders' Cup. They were right in position turning for home. They needed something extra and it wasn't there. I think that track didn't play kindly to horses that had been coming in off of very long breaks. We saw that a couple of times on Saturday. The two horses I'll shout out: Mulligan in the Churchill Downs, who was fifth beaten a length. What a hell of a race that was. Josh, you had a fantastic call with Banishing. He ran good enough to win and unfortunately didn't get up. Ways and Means as well in the race that she ran. I believe it's the Derby City Distaff that Copion wound up winning. Ways and Means looked loaded turning for home and just didn't kick on. I think you're going to wind up seeing a couple of horses whose first race of the year was on Oaks Day or Derby Day take big steps forward next time out, just because of the way that track played and how tiring it was for all horses, and how horses that had a conditioning edge, so to speak, wound up having a pretty big advantage when all was said and done. Now, for me on Friday was a very good day for me. Josh, we were both right. Torpedo Anna wound up getting beat. I liked Raging Sea quite a bit and got 4-1. The other horse I liked quite a bit on that card was Tetaroa. Was my live long shot of the Friday card. 8-1 on the morning line and won at, I believe, I don't even think we got 2-1. I think no, actually we got 5-2. Sorry, it was
It was
five to
five to
two.
two, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$7 and some change, but never once looked like a loser. Phil Bowers got a really good one on his hands with Tetaroa, and I'll be very interested to see where that one winds up going. I don't think they would try anything ridiculous like going to the Acorn with that one, but I also wouldn't be surprised if that's a horse we see later on in the summer in the test at Saratoga. So lots to keep an eye on there. I wound up hitting a couple of pick fours because I defensively used Good Cheer. Defensive be alert
Mm.
right there. But on the flip side, though, my late pick four, the last one, singled Tetaroa in the last leg, so I could afford to spread a little bit elsewhere. And that was a $20 ticket that wound up paying, I think, 120. So basically, I got 5-1 on Tetaroa, the way I put it out there. So Good Cheer, much the best. Couple of horses didn't wind up firing, but you wind up with a situation where you've got a horse that if she winds up putting together the campaign that she could, we could be looking at something special.
Yeah. Honestly, my big so going back to that last race, Tetaroa was a bailout bet for me. So thank you on that one. I think
No
I
problem.
had a little bit of money out there to kind of like at least bring me into Saturday with a little bit of my bankroll still.
Give you hope.
Um, yeah, honestly, the one that kind of hurt uh, was the Eight Bells. I had all of Evanescence.
Yeah.
I had Evanescence everywhere, and I don't know if Luan just had the horse way too far back or what happened, but it looked like she was coming, and just ran out of track basically. So that one was kind of tough. Luckily, a couple of my European friends were able to get some each way money on Evanescence, so
There you go.
they were actually able to get some money. But yeah, I thought Lucara looked to be the horse to beat in the Kentucky Oaks, and it just no one was going to beat Good Cheer that day. So um, yeah, that was kind of yeah. Friday was pretty rough for me. Just I didn't really get much going. I was against Fierceness, and Fierceness looked like Fierceness,
Me
and
too. I
Locked.
like Locked a lot. I was 3 for 4 in one of the pick fours. I had Torpedo Anna off the ticket and wound up getting I think it was the 15-1 shot home on the undercard there.
Hmm.
Singled Locked. That hurt.
Yeah,
Wrong Pletcher.
yeah. Anything else on Friday?
That was pretty much it for me with Friday. For Saturday, I wound up going to the OTB near the Alameda County Fairgrounds in Pleasanton. And shout out to them. They run a good ship. They have actually, Josh, seen their business go up significantly because they got all of the people that went to Golden Gate Fields to play at the
Mm.
OTB there. So it was absolutely packed a couple hours before first post time of the Derby. That morning, I look up and a couple tables over is the guy who runs the pro shop at Clayton Valley Bowl, which is where I get a lot of my stuff drilled. So, Steve, how you doing? It was pretty funny. But Saturday was a longish day for me. Goal oriented was a big play for me. Yes, I was the reason that horse got bet down from 4-1 to 6-5. To anyone out there that took that seriously, get a life. Um, but goal oriented was good for me. It was tough sledding for a large part of the day until we got to the Derby. The Derby was very, very good for me. I gave the exacta out here. I gave the exacta out a bunch of different places. And I did a tip sheet for winners and whiners and stat salt and picks and parlays that people bought. And if they followed the wagering strategies I laid out, they turned $50 into about 170. So all told, the Derby wound up making it so while Friday was a very good day for me, Saturday was a break even day. And that worked out pretty well. But your Saturday was a little bit better than mine because you were actually there. So by all means, regale us of stories of people crying during my old Kentucky home and drinking $40 mint juleps that taste like they were brewed in the back of a hardware store.
Free mint juleps. Well,
Attaboy!
technically
Attaboy!
technically included. So yeah, so I was lucky enough to get invited to come down but with Horse Racing Nation to go check out the Derby. I was gonna try and do some stuff with them. For reasons beyond their control, some of the stuff didn't work out. Just it was a weird week. But hopefully I think I'll talked a little bit with them, and hopefully I'll be able to do it again next year in some capacity or another. But big thanks to them for inviting me out and getting to check out everything. So I actually got in on Thursday night or Thursday afternoon. Um, it was too late to really get to the track, and I couldn't pick up my credential until the next morning. So I just kind of hung out, watched a little bit of the Thurby card while I was there, and I honestly passed out, Andrew. I was so freaking tired,
Yeah,
just
you'd
from
you'd had a heck of a year that week.
yeah. So I get to the track early on Friday, and yeah, I ran into Mary Jo, also known as Missouri Cowgirl,
Mm-hmm.
and I had met her once before at the Breeders' Cup, and so we talked a little bit, and yeah, that was like honestly outside of the people who I already knew, that was like who I was meeting up with was basically the only person I kind of saw. But it was nice because I got to meet a bunch of people. I got to meet Travis Stone. I got to meet a bunch of the people like Kevin Kilroy. I talked to for quite a bit. Got to talk with obviously Ed DeRosa, one of my good friends. We spent basically the entire weekend together, and it was a ton of fun. I got to watch him play through that Kentucky Derby contest up close and personal, and yeah, I saw Caitlin Free, Andrew Capone, my good friend there, just tons of people, and I'm like trying to think. Oh, and Louis Rabot. Got to meet Louis, who I know, Andrew. I'm sure you've done a video or two with him, possibly
I
with.
haven't, but he knows who I am, and he name dropped me on something because I think he did Chase's show right
Oh,
after
when
I
I
did.
threw you under the bus, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, the guy who does that podcast with JD."
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He great guy.
Yeah. I've
Also,
heard nothing but good things.
you want to talk about my Kentucky home? Man's got pipes. I heard him belting it out because he was literally sitting like right behind us. So, but yeah, no, honestly, I wish I would have been able to do more stuff with them, but like I said, it was just tough not knowing where to go, the security being absolutely insane, and it's just a nuts time, right? So, um, but just being able to see. Um, like I was able to go to the press conferences and stuff. I helped get some video for that. I saw Ed Dino posted some of that. Specifically, I think when Brad was talking about all the people who said, oh, or I mean, he looks at the speed figures too, but he's like, yeah, good cheer speed figures were kind of slow, and I think a couple people, some people were worried about it. And yeah, I was like, yep, that was me. That was me dogging a horse because of the speed figures. But just a lot of cool stuff, right? Bill Mott went up after obviously after Sovereignty won. They did the press conference, and he was able, like, he was just sitting there talking to people, and he's walking past, and I was able to shake his hand, just be like, congratulations, Bill. He was like, oh, thank you so much. He kind of did a quick look at my badge to kind of be like, is this someone important? Just kind of looked, but he was just like really nice. He's like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah.
Funny enough, I was talking with Caitlin Free after after the Derby, and she goes, "Yeah, I made Sovereignty my top pick because of how good of a mood Bill Mott was in all week. He's never in that good of a mood."
You know, here's the thing I don't get about Bill Mott because I've talked with him a number of times, and he's been nothing but kind and courteous
Hmm.
to me all the time. My first year that I worked for any thoroughbred publication, I interned for the Saratoga Special, which is run by the Clancys, and they sent me to interview Mott. And the vibe I got was that they thought they were, sending a lamb to slaughter or whatever. But I got 3 really good minutes with him after his horse won, broke the maiden for whatever it was. I think it was a 2-turn turf horse, if I remember correctly. But he's been nothing but kind to me. But he has a reputation of being surly to certain people. And I don't understand why, because I've never seen it. But it is certainly a thing with him as far as disposition. And he's pretty funny too. He bought into the superstition on Saratoga of him sending out winners on his birthday. And I believe the quote that he had one year for it was, "It's like lions eating the wildebeest. It's part of nature's plan." I thought that was hysterical. But no, Mott's one of the good ones. He's been one of the good ones for a very, very long time. He learned at the feet of another good one by the name of Jack Van Berg. If you have Jack Van Berg's biography, From Grit to Glory, out there, you know that. If not, go find it and go buy it. It's a really good book. Chris Katulak, who works over at Fauner Park now, wrote it, and he did a hell of a job. Really quick, before we go much further, I need to give thanks to a number of people for what I'm only going to deem the lost episode. And if you know, you know. Matthew DeSantis, thank you very much for that. I was able to spend several hours talking shop with some absolutely wonderful people on Friday night and into Saturday morning. Ryan from ABR was there. He was the guy that was trying to play traffic cop while a whole bunch of us were deliberately trying to send him askew. Shane O'Neill, Doug O'Neill's nephew, was there. They played the interview that he did with Brittany Urton when he was in middle school, and a horse named Shane's Girlfriend was debuting at Santa Anita. Um, I raised my hand and I told him, Shane, you're going to hate me. Judging by when that happened, I believe I may have been the person that uploaded that to the TVG YouTube channel. He got tormented with that for quite a while. But having seen it again, he actually did far better than I think most adults would have in that situation. But at any rate, Matthew, thank you very much to those that watched the Lost episode, to those who participated in the Lost episode. I have I don't want to say never had more fun talking horses, but it was one of the best experiences that I've had talking horses with people live in one of those settings like that. It was an absolute blast.
Yeah, I was not able to do join any of that while that
You
was
were
going
on
on, but
site. It's all good.
dude, I'm telling you, man, I was like, I had all these plans, and then like, seriously, man, we got back. I got back on Friday, and we did our live stream, and like we got done, and I was just dead. So Saturday, I get back even later, and I get back to my friend's place, and like I said, I was there by myself, so um, I open up the whiskey I brought. I pour a little bit in my glass. I take a sip and I go sit down, which turns into lane. I passed out. And I was like gonna try and leave early that next morning. I ended up staying in bed for an extra like 2 hours longer than I wanted to. But yeah, it was long. It was a like I said, I talked with if this happens again next year, we're gonna do things a little bit differently, but it was a ton of fun. Super gracious for to be able to have that opportunity and even just go and kind of experience it for the first time. It was it was interesting because it wasn't as busy as I thought it would be. Um, and like I said, maybe it's just because I was like in the press area, and we had like our own sections, like box sections. So maybe that. But even like I feel like walking through the the concourse and like walking through places, like I thought it was literally going to be like shoulder to shoulder. It just, I mean, it was busy. It was packed. There was a ton of people, but for some reason, I thought like it was going to be even more packed. But that place is huge. They've added more and more seating, so that's probably added to it. The new paddock area is absolutely gorgeous. It's yeah, it's beautiful. So yeah, tons of stuff. It was just a ton of fun. And yeah, I can't wait to go back. So that's yeah, and like I said, hopefully things kind of fall in place again for next year, but we'll wait and see. But let's talk about the race. Um, yeah, you know, I was completely wrong about Sovereignty. That was probably one of the first horses I tossed. I thought all of the Florida horses, for lack of a better term, were soft, and I just didn't want any horses coming out of that prep. I thought after Rodriguez kind of scratched out, um, and I kind of looked at it, I thought there was one or two things that happened. One, somehow Citizen Bull gets out to the front and wires this thing. Uh, but I thought that was a very unlikely scenario. I thought that,
Especially with Martin Garcia dusting off the Bayern playbook.
oh yeah, I just it was like a C type play for me, like in the back of my head. But honestly, Plan A was journalism. And I will say, some of my friends had said that, oh, what race was it? Man, I forget which race it was, but Umberto looked like he was absolutely loaded on a horse.
It
It was
might have been the turf sprint with AG Bullet, maybe, because he was inside. And the thing is, I don't think that was his fault. Joel Rosario sort of slammed the door on him, and I was shocked that they didn't look at that. But I believe that's the one it was because AG Bullet looked like she was home free if she could get out, and she didn't.
Yeah, and but someone's like, well, that might be the preview of what you're going to see in the Derby. With him finding traffic. But honestly, I didn't. I know the Derby's kind of a game of trips. But I didn't really. I thought that he rode the Derby well.
He did.
He just was second best that day, and so can't be too mad. Like I said, I was. I wasn't super leveraged through the horse, but like I was basically at the point where it's like, hey, if this horse wins, I basically break even up maybe $100 on the weekend. If he loses, I'm down for the weekend, and um, I felt really bad because Ed had a humongous bet in the tournament on journalism. I think he had like 10,000 to win
Yeah, he
on
was he had that fair odds thing out all week, and he had journalism at 5-2 on there, and he was 7-2, 4-1. So he put his money where his mouth was for sure.
Yeah, he ended up hitting the trifecta kind of with a backup bet. So I mean, he was still like wiping his tears with $100 bills at the end of the thing. But I was like, knowing how much he had on it, I was filming some of the stuff out there, and then like I was like, wait, I'm gonna turn this camera to Ed because I want to see him rooting journal in case journalism is coming home. I want to get video of him rooting his horse home, and right at the top of the stretch, it looks like he's about to make a move. So I get the camera ready, and then like I'm getting ready to hit record, and then all of a sudden I'm like, it ain't gonna happen. Like you could kind of just tell,
Yep.
and so yeah, it was yeah, I was nowhere near that horse. Apparently, Caleb said that was the only other horse that could win besides journalism, and Caleb I think made exactly $0 on that opinion. So shout out to Caleb. He was right and but also wrong.
Someone
But
else was right too. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, no, Andrew, that was a great call, and you'd already kind of brought it up that you'd given it out tons of places. So here I'll give you a little bit
Thank you.
of clapping there for you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Um,
So yeah, that was I was screaming for journalism too because I wasn't sure who the horse was on the outside initially turning for home. It was a little unclear the first couple of strides. And then you see Godolphin Blue at about the 3/16 pole, and I went, "Oh my God, that's sovereignty! Oh my God, that's sovereignty!" And sovereignty goes by, and I'm going, "This is the best possible combination. This is wonderful." And then journalism, you can see, I don't want to say is getting tired, but his stride is shortening just a little bit. And you see that 21 saddlecloth come in from off the screen. And all of a sudden, me going, sovereignty, 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 turns into me screaming, where's the wire? Where's the wire? Where's the wire? And thankfully, journalism got up for second to be able to salvage the exacta because I didn't like Baeza much at all. That horse surprised me. The biggest surprise, though, I got to say, how the hell did Owen Almighty run fifth?
I mean, it was really really interesting because he was the only speed that held on, and you would have thought that there would have been another four or five horses coming, and they just didn't.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
it was very. I was talking with Mark Midland from Horse Racing Nation after the race, and he was like, he's like a lot of these horses they didn't look like closers, they just look like plotters, right? Like
mhm.
they like maybe they'd be passing tired horses, but they didn't even pass tired horses, right? The legit closers closed, and Owen Almighty held on for fifth somehow. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
the one closer that I think you can make a legitimate excuse for was Burnham Square because he got stuck behind Admire Daytona. And I don't think he was winning, but you could make the argument that he could have been third with a cleaner trip. I think Sovereignty and Journalism were the two best horses, but Burnham Square I think is the closer that if you're looking for a wise guy horse next time, he's probably that horse. But I got to tell you, he was 18-1 in the Derby. He's probably going to be a quarter of that the next time he runs with how many people saw that trip on Sunday.
Yeah. Um, there. What else was I going to say? There's something else I was going to say. Now I'm blanking. Um,
We'll get there if it comes back to you.
yeah. Anything else on the race?
I mean, the Derby's always the Derby. It's fun, it's exciting, and seeing the OTB in Pleasant and packed as it was a lot of fun. That's those are the days that we get into the sport to bet on, and a lot of people did indeed bet on it. It was another record-breaking Kentucky Derby for our friends over at Churchill Downs. So more power to them. Congratulations to the connections of Sovereignty. It's good that Bill Mott was able to get a Derby winner and really be able to enjoy it this time
Yeah.
from
The,
what happened back in 2019 with people booing as Country House got led into the winner's circle. This year, he had the best horse.
he even made a little bit of joke about it
Yeah.
in the press conference. It was
And
pretty
by the
funny.
way, can we just applaud the fact that rather than go to some five-star restaurant after the Kentucky Derby, he went to a dive bar?
Yeah.
Good on you, Bill Mott.
Dude,
Good on you.
you want to know what kills me, Andrew, is that Ed asked me if I wanted to go out after, and I was like, I was all about it, and then I just hit a wall like right before
Yep.
I left, and I'm like, Ed, I gotta go to bed. He's like, come on, and I was like, oh, I gotta go. And then of course he's out with Bill Mott. Like, what the hell am I doing in my life?
That's always the
Um,
way it
by
works.
the way, I have to do this. Shout out to the Sheik. What a weekend for the Sheik and Godolphin, right? The Oaks Derby double for Godolphin.
And a
Uh,
couple of big races overseas too. One quick tangent on this lost episode, they had somebody from our friends over at the HHH podcast, one of their international people. He had this intricate six-leg parlay with all Godolphin runners, and I think it hit. And if that hit, it was like a five-figure score for him on some ridiculous odds. So really, really hope that that wound up coming through for that guy. And he showed us the ticket as it went through. And I'm remembering, and I'm looking back and went, they won the Oaks, they won the Derby, they won the 1,000 guineas, they won the 2,000 guineas. They had a pretty good decade last weekend. That's for sure.
yeah. Um, anything else on the weekend?
I mean, that was pretty much it. I mean, we've covered it pretty intensely. Shout out to those of you that played along with some of our opinions, because if you did, you wound up having a couple of pretty good days.
Yeah. I actually, yeah, I had bet the $3 3-year-old pick three.
Yeah.
And so I hit the speed horse in the Pat Day Mile, the 7 horse. Why am I blanking on the name? No, that's not what I wanted.
Macho
It's
something.
yeah, Macho. Oh my God,
Yeah, I'm blanking too, and I don't want to have my video feed start going in and out. So
Macho Music is
that's
the
it.
name of the horse. Yeah,
That's it.
beat Matticat Road and Gaming the who finished second and
Did
third
you see
in that
John
one.
Velasquez's quotes after the race?
No.
He was pissed at Gaming, his own horse, because turning for home, he thought Gaming had a whole bunch of horse and Gaming fooled him. And this is the same thing Gaming has done in several of his past starts where you think he's got all this horse and he just doesn't move forward.
Hmm.
It was pretty funny because when it's coming from a Hall of Fame jockey who, you run third in a graded stakes race, it's usually not the end of the world. He was pissed.
Yeah. 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 That was I really liked the horse. Thinking that it was going to be one on the front end in that race.
Three cherry
Th-
special.
3 cherry special, and then when the track came up extremely muddy, and I saw McLean's music tap it on the bottom, I was all in.
Yep.
So that was nice. But yeah, the really only other thing I got to talk about the Derby is man. So I wasn't aware whether I could bring an umbrella or anything. You know, like going to events, it's like really tough, right? What can you
Yeah.
bring in? What can you not bring in? So it's drizzling in the morning, and I get to Churchill Downs very early. It's probably like 8:30 or so, and I'm I'd gotten in the day before, a little bit later, and it took me like 4 minutes to get through the gate. So it's drizzling. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna bring an umbrella. I got nothing. Like it's fine. I'll get through. Well, turns out instead of it taking me 3 4 minutes to get through, it took me an hour, Andrew. And in that time, it went from drizzle to steady rain to the heavens opening up.
Yep.
Andrew, I showed up. I walk in. I'm just dripping water everywhere. I was basically soaked the entire day. Thank God my jacket was thick enough that it like absorbed so much of it that like my shirt and tie and everything was fine. But I was just like I was miserable the first like hour or two, and then I got to get yelled at by security for apparently going somewhere I wasn't supposed to go,
Attaboy.
which was fun. But
Were you wearing your press badge at the time you did that?
I was,
There
and
we are.
yeah, so it's yeah, it's yeah,
That's
it
my
was an
co-host.
interesting time,
So
but
somehow, someone somewhere is going to think that was my fault.
probably.
Yeah, happens.
Uh, anyways, it was a great time, great weekend. Like I said, the racing was awesome, and I think I think we're gonna have a really fun summer of racing. I'm feeling upbeat, even if some people on horse racing Twitter aren't. But you can't please everybody.
No,
Um, but I guess it kind of comes into our next topic, which is the second leg coming up of the Triple Crown, that has already basically been decided that we are not going to have a Triple Crown winner this year, as Bill Mott and Sovereignty are skipping the second leg, and they're not going to race in the Preakness. They're going to go straight to the Belmont. Um, and I have some thoughts on this, Andrew. I don't know if you want me to go first or if you want to go first. But I have a lot of thoughts on this. Um, coming from a number of different different angles here, but I don't know. What do you want to do? You want me to go first, or you want to go?
you go first, and if my take on it winds up providing an interesting segue, I'll jump in. Otherwise, I'll wait for you to wrap.
Okay. So I saw a couple of different reactions to this, right? Some being like basically, oh, like why are you running in the Derby if you're not going to run in all the legs? Which I think is kind of I don't know, it's just kind of a weird take. But I mean, I get it, right? Um, Others being like, hey, like he doesn't owe us anything, and I agree. But some of those takes were also from Churchill Downs employees, and it's like, well, it's easy for you to say that when he runs your race and doesn't run, a quote unquote competitor's race. But right? Like it's a very complex issue. Like because you have three different tracks, three different jurisdictions who all have their own separate interests, right? And I mean, heck, I even saw something like I something I didn't even think about, right? Because Mark was upset that Bill Mott wasn't going to run, and I was like, why are you upset? Well, he bought some seats for Belmont Stakes, and I think he bought like one or two too many, and so he was going to have to sell them. And he's like, well, I probably would have made money had there been a triple crown, triple crown on the line, like, and it's like, oh, like I didn't even think about that, right? But all that being said, um, yeah, like I'm totally okay with Bill Mott not running his horse 2 weeks back. If he doesn't think that's the right thing to do, by all means. Even if the horse is sound, like I saw some people saying like, oh well, the horse must. Even if he thinks the horse is sound, but he's just like doesn't want to run, that's fine, right? Let him run his horse when he wants to run his horse. It's his horse, right? At the same time, I see absolutely no reason why we need to change the dates for this stuff. Yeah, if he doesn't want to run for the Triple Crown, that's fine. Like it's totally up to him. Doesn't mean that we should make it easier so more people can try and win the Triple Crown, right? I mean, someone even said, "Hey, it's a good thing he's not running because what if he won, and then all of a sudden he's running into Belmont, going a mile and a quarter at Saratoga? Is that really the Triple Crown? It's not the traditional distance, although it has been run at that distance before. It's not at the right track, although last year it was also run there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, so yeah, I just like I don't we this happens all the time, Andrew. Yeah, I feel like we talked about this last year. Okay, we got to change the Triple Crown, right? We got like why do we need to make it easier? And the thing is like when I'm agreeing with Dave Portnoy on stuff, right? Like I know that like I'm just like the whole thing has just completely lost the plot, right? Like it should be hard to do, right? It should be a test of endurance, right? And yeah, it shouldn't be every freaking year that we have, that it's like, oh, well, maybe this is going to be the year, right? Like, yeah, it's fine. If Bill Mott doesn't want to run it, it's fine. It like does it stink for the Preakness? Yes. Is it good for my Preakness future bet on Rodriguez that I locked in at 11-1? Like, yeah, it's great for me for not having that horse run. So, maybe I won't get scratched out 2 days before where I jinxed myself and said, hey, at least I'll have a sweat. Um, but I don't know, Andrew. I just feel like I get it. I get being disappointed. I get being like not, people want to see their horse. People want to see horses run. The Triple Crown is a great achievement. People want to see great horses accomplish great things. Um, and this year, a great horse is not going to even attempt, this feat. Um, and I think that's fine. I don't think that we need to. I don't think we need to change anything. But Andrew, what are you thinking?
We're in lockstep on a lot of this, down to the fact that we're both really creeped out about agreeing with Dave Portnoy on something.
Hmm.
The only other thing that I agree with Dave Portnoy on is our shared choice of college football teams. Go blue. Um, I don't think it should change. Uh, it, I'm a sucker for doing things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. John F. Kennedy. Bet you didn't think you were getting a Kennedy quote as part of this show, did you? But I don't think it should change. I do think at some point it will. And I think it will change because not because horses aren't winning the Triple Crown, it's connections that don't want to wheel back in 2 weeks. And that potentially killing the Preakness, and by extension, in some years, killing the Belmont, because when that goes back to a mile and a half, if there's no Triple Crown on the line, we have seen Belmont renewals with fields that are not special. So I'm not overly convinced that we're staying where we're at. I think it's more likely than ever that there will be a change in the dates. However, here's what scares me. If we're changing the dates, but we're not changing the way horses are bred, we're going to be right back at this point in 20 years. We're going to be saying, horses can't run once a month. Are you crazy? We need to space the Triple Crown out to where we have the Derby in May, we have the Preakness in July, and we have the Belmont in September on Labor Day weekend. That's not anything anybody associated with the game should want. However, as has been pointed out by a number of breeders on Twitter as part of this, this is what I found truly fascinating. They're breeding what owners want at auctions. And what owners want at auctions is brilliance. They don't want horses with steel legs that look like they can go 12 furlongs. They want horses that are built to be very, very fast, very, very young, that go sub 10-second eighths of a mile in quote unquote breezes at 2-year-old sales over souped up tracks long before they're ready. So, how much can you really blame breeders for breeding those horses if those horses are what owners want? It's a conundrum for sure. And if they change the dates, which I think at some point they may have to, not because of anything that we value, but because they feel like they have to in order to save the Preakness. I hope there is also a change made to the breeding industry to where we don't have to do that again, hopefully ever, but certainly not for a very long time. Unfortunately, I'm not naive enough to think that's likely to happen because, in to steal a phrase from my good friend Joe Neville's, money machine goes burr.
Yeah, I just like I just don't see a need to
I don't
change it.
either because, like I said, it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be complicated. And for everything that Bob Baffert has done over the years, and you can make whatever inferences you want, when his horses win the Derby, they go to the Preakness. Todd Pletcher, both years his horses won the Derby, they ran in the Preakness. Kenny McPeak did not have to run Mystic Dan last year. He did. He ran a good second. You can argue that he's never been the same since. That's where we're at with the state of horse flesh in this game at that level. That part of it is incredibly unfortunate. And that I think is the bigger issue rather than when are we going to run the Triple Crown? It's can we breed horses that can handle it rather than having to sacrifice the nature of these three races and force something into existence. Now, those out there that say changing it isn't a big deal will say that the Triple Crown has changed significantly over the years. But I would argue that there's also been changes in other respects. Back in the 1940s, Josh, horses ran a race between the Preakness and the Belmont so that they stayed sharp. Try to imagine that happening now and try
Hmm.
to imagine any quality horse worth their salt doing that. Or for that matter, going back to the early 80s, Conquistador Cielo did the Met Mile Belmont double in less than a week. That ain't happening again. That's the shame.
Yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, I just don't really think that there's much need to change. And like I
We
said, like
agree more than we disagree for sure.
the middle leg I think is always going to be um a little less special, right? Without there being a triple crown runner, but I don't know. Yeah, I think we actually have a pretty decent crop of 3 year olds. Like I said, I'm excited to see Rodriguez run back. It sounds like he's working again and is pointing towards the Preakness. So it'll be fun to see him run. And like honestly, um, if anything, the only thing I could see them possibly changing, but the thing is once again you'd have to get basically Belmont to agree, and I don't see that happening. Right?
No, not
Is
after they're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into the new facility. They're not
Yeah,
going to be inclined to do favors for anyone.
yeah. The only thing I could see is Preakness moves back 1 week, and you have 3 weeks between both races. That
You
might be
know,
the only that might be the only change I would be okay with, but I don't see that happening because I don't think Belmont's going to want to budge.
so
And
here's something that I think is worth considering. I don't know if they would ever do it because this time of year in Maryland, weather wise, is not great. Craig Milkowski suggested this, and of the alternatives, this is the one I like. Why not move the Preakness to early April?
make it a Derby points race, basically.
Heck with the preps.
No.
I'd rather sacrifice the preps than sacrifice the other races.
Yeah, I
Of
just
the,
I
of the alternatives, I think that's the one I like the most. Now, mind you, you're going to have a whole bunch of very upset people at Keeneland and Santa Anita and Aqueduct and Turfway,
mm,
but I personally, I like that. I think you wind up with a bunch of horses that eye the Preakness instead. Unfortunately, you're probably not going to get the concert goers in the first week in April that you would the third week in May when weather is considerably warmer.
I thought they canceled the concert this year.
There is a concert after the races. Wyclef Jean and T Pain are going to be
Hmm.
playing, I suppose. No word as to whether or not T-Pain will be on a boat.
Hmm. T-Pain also a guy with some pipes. Man
Yeah.
can sing.
Yeah,
I don't know
he
if you
can
ever
sing, and
seen
he also he's very inclined to whip out his credit card at drinking establishments and buy you a drink. Yes, the guy whiter than Casper the Friendly
mm,
Ghost made a T-Pain joke.
all right. Anything else on the Triple Crown
Oh, I feel like that's a
nonsense?
good spot to end on as any for the Preakness next week. I'm very excited. I've been to Pimlico a couple of times. It's fantastic. My first big score as a public handicapper was Oxbow back in that year's Preakness when he went wire to wire and defeated Orb. Shout out to Kevin Krieger, who rode Golden Sense that day and inexplicably rated Golden Sense. That move never made sense, but I am so happy he did
Hmm.
that. Going to be doing a lot of Preakness stuff. We're going to have 2 very good days of racing at Old Hilltop. The Black Eyed Susan on Friday is always a lot of fun. And there are a couple of stakes races on the undercard both Friday and Saturday that are going to be cool too. So shout out to the people at Pimlico. By all accounts, they do everything right. Shout out to Dan Illman, who's doing a lot of on-air stuff after leaving DRF to go down there. He's one of the really good ones. I will always have a place in my heart for him, for how welcoming he was the times I went to DRF headquarters in New York when I worked there. Hopefully everybody there does well, and hopefully they're ready to do the best they can for a couple of days of racing that deserve the pomp and circumstance they get.
Awesome. What else you got going on this week, Andrew?
Well, this week is actually going to be wedding prep, believe it or not. So, there is a tradition in Chinese culture that there's a big party with a whole bunch of food that the groom winds up putting on a couple of weeks before the wedding. So, I am actually going with my fiance's parents into San Francisco to buy a whole bunch of food. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to wind up eating it. So, we'll see how that goes. But the other thing that I'm doing this weekend is editing the video slideshow that's going to air at my fiance's school's 5th grade promotion. She, for those of you who do not know, is a public school teacher teaching 5th grade in an Oakland suburb. This is my way of giving back to the community, and this is something I very much enjoy every year. Last year, I was able to see for the first time the slideshow as it played, and seeing parents cry, that's currency for me. There's nothing better than that. Nothing.
And that's going to do it for us here on Drank and Champagne. Obviously, check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Andrew's at Andrew Champagne. Make sure
All the
you
buttons, all the
like,
buttons, all the buttons.
subscribe, hit all the buttons. Have a good week, guys. See you later.